If you've ever played on servers such as DDCS, Enigmas, or Georgia at War, you've likely encountered an AWACS, be it the base game one, Overlord bot, or you may have encountered a player on the other side of that radio. Being a player GCI can be a lot of fun, which may come as a surprise to some. Behind it lies a very helpful and passionate community revolving around being the AWACS or ATC on any server that you may come across with SRS. Despite this, there are very few detailed tutorials on how to actually do any of these things, let alone where to begin if you're new like I once was. This video will be intended to serve as a beginner's guide to GCI, mainly on Hoggit's Georgia at War or Persian Gulf at War servers, that will show you the basics of all of the tools you will be using, such as SRS and LotATC, but also going over Brevity and how to become proficient as the dedicated player AWACS on your server. To begin, if you have not already, download SRS. When you're on their website, click on the blue button in the center that says Download Latest Release, and on their GitHub page, scroll down and click on the button that says DCS Simple Radio Standalone.zip underneath the Assets dropdown. When you do this and it is finished downloading, find where it's located and drag it somewhere that will be easy to extract later. In this case, I'll put it onto my desktop. On the desktop, right-click the zip file and extract it. After extracting the folder, open it, and run the installer in the middle of the file explorer. After running the installer, it will prompt you with this window and 3 steps. The first step, which is to pick the installation location, should already be filled for you, but if it is not, go to your program files and make a folder called DCS Simple Radio and put it there. Step 2 is to locate your saved games folder, but specifically not your DCS install folder. Step 3 to install or remove the program has 2 buttons on the bottom. We will be installing it, so press the button that says install/update. After you've installed it, open the application SR Client Radio. It will open your DCS SRS client. At the top, open your controls. The AWACS panel that you will be using to talk to other people has options for 10 different radio frequencies. To be able to speak on these radios, you need push-to-talk keys bound for each individual one. Let's set radio 1 for example. Find it at the top here, press the button that says Set, and then press the button you want to work as your push-to-talk. Repeat this for as many radios that you want to use, and find the setting for Special Intercom Select and Push-to-Talk. I have this set to my grave key. This is how you manipulate the intercom on the panel. Open your settings page, scroll down until you are in the Profiles settings area, and turn on Radio Switch Works as Push-to-Talk. Back to your General page, set the microphone that you want to use. You can change your speakers and speaker volume, and leave mic pass-through out. You now need to find the connection information to the server you wish to be an AWACS on. For Hoggit's Georgia at War server, in any of their channels, typing an !IP will get the bot to reply to you with a message giving different variations of their IPs. Copy and paste the IP for either the GA or PGA server, depending on which one you wish to connect to, and leave it in the slot for IPs. You will now need to connect to the external AWACS mode, or EAM. To do this, you will need the correct password for the server and a username, which will be a call sign that you will pick. The password is Hoggit's default password for all of its servers. You can find it by typing !password in any channel, similar to how you found the IP. Your EAM name should be the call sign you want to be known as. Through SRS, if players have their overlay turned on, the EAM name will show up as who is transmitting. Call signs should be something short, sweet, easy to pronounce, easy to recognize, and roughly 2 to 3 syllables. Examples include names such as Magic, Darkstar, or Wizard. Some player GCIs that frequently play on Georgia at War include names such as Sauron or Damsel. The call sign that I use is Galaxy, so I will write it here in this example. Press the button that says Connect, press the button that says Connect External AWACS Mode, then press the button that says Toggle AWACS Overlay. This is your radio overlay with the 10 different radios as mentioned earlier. From the top left to bottom right are radios 1, 2, 3, and so on. The different types of radios on the top and bottom, being UHF and VHF respectively, hold no significance on Georgia at War, although on other servers that may treat SRS differently, this may end up having a difference. The only exception to this are the two FM radios in the middle, which cannot be tuned to anything higher than frequency 76.0. How I like to have my radios laid out is from the left to right are 134, the player GCI net, 253, common net, 30, which is common FM, 251, which is a default frequency most aircraft spawn tuned to, and 249.5, which is the ATC frequency. Although you will mainly be using frequency 134, it is good practice to be monitoring all of these frequencies as they are some of the most commonly used, and you may end up needing to use one of them at some point. You can turn each of these radios down by dragging the sliders to the left. Personally, I would mute most of these, with the exception to 253, which I leave at half volume, and obviously leaving 134 at max, since that is going to be your radio. LotATC is going to be the main tool that you will be using as the GCI. To install it, go to their website, which is lotatc.com, and at the top, click on the download page. Scroll down, ignoring everything you see about buying a license or demos, and click on the Download LotATC Installer button close to the bottom. When clicking on the downloaded.exe, press Next until you get to the Install folder. If it's not automatically filled, put it somewhere under your program files in the C drive. Then select any maps that you own for the game, such as the Caucasus, Marianas, Persian Gulf, and Syria. Keep on pressing Next until you are prompted to install. When LotATC has finished installing, untick the option to launch LotATC Configurator, because that only concerns installing LotATC for servers, and press Finish. After this, go back to your desktop, and you should see 4 new icons on your screen. The only one that you will be concerning yourself with is LotATC Client Advanced. Go ahead and open it. Inside LotATC, click on the cogwheel in the top left. You should now be in the General Settings page. In here, you can choose the size of the UI, the theme of the UI, light or dark, and the accent color of the UI. Don't worry about the themes page, since this only applies to people who have a license for LotATC. Inside the Map tab, you can change how different aspects of the main screen will appear, such as the colors of the map, ranging rings, and the measuring line. Personally, I have the measure line toggle option turned off, since having it off makes it a lot easier to manipulate the measuring line, which is the main tool that you will be using 95% of the time in LotATC. And if it's not on already, show bulls near mouse cursor. In the Items page, turn on Use Advanced Classification. By clicking on the boxes showing the different colors of the icons, you're able to change the color of the icon itself. Personally, I would not recommend changing anything or deviating very far from the default colors, although if you want to make them brighter and more vibrant to add contrast, you can go ahead and do that. Farther down in the item parameters, the option to show item background will add a transparent background in the middle of all symbols on the map, which will look like this. You can set it as you wish. The slider for Define Speed Vector Mode changes how long or short aircraft heading lines will be. I would personally leave this to something like 30 seconds, but I would advise you never turn it off completely, as this is a very important piece of information. Ghost lines and ghost points will either add a line or point trailing all aircraft on the map. Personally, I use ghost points, and they will be shown as rectangles. Above, you can define the amount of ghosts that will be on an aircraft. The Labels tab is where you will get the most customization out of LotATC. Leave the first drop-down blank, but on the drop-down for behavior on overlap, change this to nothing. Anything other than nothing will either completely hide information from you, or it will bloat all of the information, causing a lot of clutter, which you want to avoid. In the display section, you can either hide or show the transparent background that's attached to text on all of the icons of aircraft on the map. Here is what they look like. Below here, turn on Label Follow Item Color. This makes it much easier to identify the aircraft side being either friendly or enemy just by reading the text on the label. Below this, you can change the back and foreground of the transparent background to labels that I showed before. In the Define Content for Labels section, this is where you will be customizing the information icons are going to give you through basic HTML scripting. The text at the bottom showing normal is what will always be shown on the map. Hovered is what it will show if you put your mouse cursor over top of the label. Click on the friend icon under Air. What it's telling you is that it will always show the first 10 digits of someone's username, and then on the line below it, showing an abbreviated version of their altitude and what airframe they're in. Now click on the hostile under Air. You don't want to know the username of your enemy. A far more useful piece of information would be their airframe, which should be front and center. To change this, replace where it says name with type. And then you can delete where it says type on the bottom of the second line. Do the same thing for friendly and hostile land and sea targets, since by default it will show you their name in the mission file, which we do not need to know, where we could be getting a far more useful piece of information being what type of SAM site it is, for example, like an SA-3 or an SA-10. Under the Available Values dropdown, you can see all of LotATC's custom values that give a lot more information if you choose to add them to your labels. Things like transponder numbers, Mach number, their board number, ground speed, and you can even change the color of certain text with hex codes. Although I'm not going to get into any of this in depth, so I will leave you to explore this on your own. Do not worry about the Approach tab, since it is only applicable to people doing ATC work. The Shortcuts tab shows you all of LotATC's shortcuts. I personally wouldn't change any of these, but I would remember where your set classification buttons are bound to. The final setting is Chat. I would turn off Show Notification Bubble on messages, since when we go to customize what are called our docs later, there is a specific chat tool that you can look at. If you find it is annoying to hear a high-pitched ding whenever someone types something to chat, you can turn it off here as well. You can now close the settings page. Unfortunately, in order to customize your docs, you have to be logged into a server. To do this, press the Connect button at the top left, and then press the button to make a new bookmark on the bottom left. Add your server's LotATC IP in the address bar. In this case, it will be dcs.hoggitworld.com. Leave the port as default and do not mind the comma, as it is just a visual bug and will not affect your ability to join the LotATC server. Set your sudo to the call sign that you chose previously. And the password is the same password that Hoggit uses for every single one of its servers. To find all of this information, use the !LotATC command in their Discord server, and it will show up all of the information listed here. Once you've filled everything in, double-click the bookmark and change its name to something you will remember. Once you've finished doing all of this, press the save icon, and then connect on the bottom right. We can now begin customizing our docs. If you want a list of all of the available ones, click this Open Options button, and then you can find all of the doc areas available to you, as well as the docs or tools. I'll show you how I like to have my LotATC screen set up. You can expand the left and right areas by dragging this middle bar. I like to have my selection properties window at the top of the left area. You can move it by pressing the three dots over here and press move up. You can expand a window by dragging down on the middle bar, similar to how you dragged the left and right area across. Leave the draw tool here. And I like to have my weather on the left area. So to move it over to the left from the right, click on the three dots, move to, and select the left area. I like to have it on the bottom, so I will keep on selecting it and pressing move down until it's there. The Objects tab is a very important tool that you'll be referencing constantly, and I like having easy access to it. So what I will do is in the three dots drop down, under Move To, send it to a new floating dock. Instead of putting it at somewhere like the top or bottom, I can easily move this around wherever I like it. I like having it right around here. I do the same thing for the bra window on the right. And the same thing for the radio menu, except I will put this in the second floating window along with the bra panel. So what I will do is press send it to the main window floating to, which name lines up with the bra floating dock. All you have to do now is scroll down and you're in the radio menu. I do the same thing with the chat, but add it to a new floating window. At this point, the right area is completely useless to me, and so is the mission properties, so I will go to the Open Settings in the dock area, untick the right area. If you've previously hidden a dock or tool that you want to see back, in the same Open Settings menu, under Docs, if you've hidden one, you can show it here. If they're all marked as shown, they're probably in a dock area that you've previously hidden, such as the right area. At this point, you may start to hear dinging if someone ends up typing something in the chat. Remember, you can turn this off by going into your settings, the chat menu, and play sound on new messages. So a clarification about how some of these tools work. In the Selection Properties tab, if you click on anything, it will give you all of the information that you will ever need to know about someone. If I click on Castle 1-3, it will show you their name, classification, subdimension, their aircraft type, the call sign, which is assigned by the game, not by themselves, which you would ignore, their side number, you can add a comment to them, as well as things like transponder modes, positions, bullseyes, altitude, and whatnot. At the bottom, you have tools such as show on the map, copy their coordinates, display ranging rings around them, set them as the bullseye, and locking your view on this object. Although I would not touch display range rings or set bullseye, as that will throw you off. The draw tool is how you would put down different drawings on the map. You can turn it on by pressing Left-Alt-E or clicking on the slider. The Maps tab is where you can change the contrast or color of different aspects of the map. The Objects tab is where you can see and select everything that's placed on the map. On the drop-down to the right of this menu, you can filter out everything that's shown, such as by classification, by dimension, or if they're human or not, which I would always have on. The bra page is actually not the way that you give people information. This comes useful when there's someone who is not monitoring your radio net, and you can give them an automated call that will appear only to them in their chat box. You can do this by holding right control and then dragging right click from someone to anything. The radio tab only applies to servers that treat SRS more realistically. You would have to enable this and then set your location. Other than that, it is functionally useless. The chat window is simply put your chat, and you can filter it to LotATC only, people who are talking in the blue side chat, and people who are talking in the all chat. The Weather tab, as much as I like having it, doesn't refresh automatically. So after a certain point, the weather, such as the wind, visibility, and temperature, will change drastically. For example, it could say a 20-kilometer-an-hour crosswind from 89 degrees to 269 degrees. After about an hour, it could be a 40-kilometer crosswind from 269 degrees to 89 degrees. So the complete opposite, which has happened to me before. This is just how I personally have my LotATC set up. You can change this however you're comfortable, but I'll show some examples of how creative some people have gotten with their setups. I fully encourage you to go wild with this. With our docs and tools finally set up, we can actually start learning how to do GCI or AWACS work on a live server. As an AWACS, the main way that you will be conveying information to other players is through BRA calls, until you start dabbling into picture calls, which I will cover briefly later. BRA is an acronym you've likely heard before playing DCS. It stands for Bearing, Range, Altitude, Aspect, and is often appended with the type and sometimes the speed of the contact. BRA calls are relative to the aircraft you are giving them to. A BRA call for someone off of another player's aircraft is worse than useless, so keep this in mind. The most basic example of a BRA call is Dagger 1-1, Magic, BRA 221 32 16,000, Hot, Hostile, Frogfoot. Putting this into bite-sized pieces, you open with the aircraft's call sign you were giving the BRA call to, Dagger 1-1, then your call sign, Magic. Give the bearing to the target, the range to the target, the height in thousands of feet, not angels, which is a term exclusively used for friendly aircraft, the aspect of the target. Hot, in this case, means the target is moving straight towards them. Specify the target is hostile, and then give the type of aircraft, which is a Su-25 or Frogfoot. Killing the bad habit before it starts, do not say at or for in your transmission. Remember what I said about SRS and being difficult to hear sometimes? At could easily be confused for the number 8, and for could easily be confused for the number 4, but I digress. To elaborate on aspects a bit, there are 4 aspects: hot, flank, beam, and drag, which are all attached with a cardinal direction with the exception to hot. Aspects, like bras, are relative to the aircraft you are giving it to. So if an enemy is moving towards the friendly aircraft you are talking to, you would call out hot. If the enemy is moving towards the friendly, but not exactly nose on, you would call out flank and give a cardinal direction. You could call something like flank northwest. If the enemy seems to be moving perpendicular to the friendly, you would call out beam as well as giving a cardinal direction. For example, beam north. If the enemy is moving away from the friendly, you would call out drag, again giving a cardinal direction. For example, drag east. If you are wondering why I am saying drag in place of cold, is because drag is actually the correct term to be using. Cold is slang in this case. You should always be using drag instead of cold. Type is simple. It just requires some memory. I'll leave a resource to NATO reporting names for various aircraft, but on screen I will show some of the most common aircraft that you will be encountering on Georgia at War, as well as their reporting names. Speed is entirely optional. If you were to call speed, calling fast would apply to a target moving between 600 to 900 knots ground speed, or Mach 1 to Mach 1.5. Calling very fast applies to targets exceeding 900 knots ground speed, or Mach 1.5. Feel free to disregard everything extra that I have added to the basics of a bra call, such as the speed or type, and just stick to the basics of bearing, range, altitude, and aspect. When you start feeling more comfortable, you could venture into some of the quote-unquote advanced ways of getting into a bra call. The alternative to a bra call is a bullseye call, and references the bullseye placed on the map, which is in the same position for all friendly aircraft. If you turn on the bullseye setting on the bottom right of LotATC, using your measuring line automatically makes it start from the bullseye and end to your cursor. Giving a bullseye call is the exact same thing as giving a bra call. The only difference in this transmission would be saying bullseye in place of bra, and using the bullseye tool for the correct bearing and ranges. For example, Viper 1-1, Magic, Group, Bullseye, 022, 35, 42,000, Track West, Hostile Fulcrum. Killing another bad habit before it starts, refrain from saying bulls instead of bullseye, since it can be mistaken for something completely different. Just remember to stick to saying bullseye when giving a bullseye call. To actually get the information for a bra or bullseye call, you use the measuring line, not the bra tool. Do this by putting your cursor over top of the requesting aircraft, hold right-click and drag to whatever area or icon you want a bearing and range to. If it isn't following your cursor, make sure that the bullseye setting isn't turned on at the bottom right of LotATC. In that area, there is also a snapping option for the measuring line if you wish to turn it on. And if the text for the measuring line is too small, go into your map settings and crank the font size of the measuring line. On Georgia at War, you'll want to go Sunrise on the Discord first. To do this, go to the appropriate Discord channel and type a message that is formatted like this. In this case, inside the Georgia at War text channel, you start with the command prefix of !GCI. You then write Sunrise, indicating that you are active. The abbreviation of the server you are on, so if you're on Georgia at War, type GAW, G-A-W, like I did. If you are on the Persian Gulf at War server, you would type in PGAW, P-G-A-W. After this, you would write your call sign, in my case, Galaxy. After that, you would write the frequency you will be occupying, so 134.0, the dedicated player GCI net. And then at the end, you would add any remarks that you may have. For example, you could add that you are a newer GCI. This makes it so whenever people do the !GCI command, it says that you are on Georgia at War on 134, what your call sign is, and that you are a newer GCI if you choose to include that. Which I would, since you may get one or two people key in on the intercom offering help, which is a common occurrence among new GCIs. After doing this, connect to the server on SRS following the steps I listed previously, turn on your AWACS overlay, set up your frequencies, connect to the server on LotATC, fix your docks if they've moved around like the floating windows will do sometimes, and then you can begin your GCI duties. Before we begin, I want to lay an extremely important ground rule. You are a suggestion. Nobody is required to talk to you, listen to you, or even tune into your frequency. It does get annoying at times seeing someone right there that you could have helped, but can't because they probably don't know that SRS exists still. But this comes with the territory. If you remember this single golden rule, you will avoid a lot of hair pulling down the line. Another rule that I encourage is that you don't have to be 100% professional when speaking. Everyone would rather a GCI that is sloppy or inexperienced than one that is incorrect. Have fun with it. This is a video game. Not everything has to be done by the book. It is okay not knowing a term or two. Just don't act like you know what you're doing when watching this is likely evidence that you don't. Personally, I am not a professional. I have no real-world experience. I am still learning all of this myself, and I get things wrong from time to time, and that is okay. Practice makes perfect, and we're all here to have fun. Remember that. With using SRS, you won't sound like you may think. You will sound like this. Now add all of the noises people might be hearing when trying to listen to you. They may have their RWR going off, their afterburner on, their Rio talking to them. They may be listening to music. You may have a thick accent making it hard to understand you sometimes. It is extremely hard to understand you if you are not talking correctly. When speaking to your aircraft, speak clearly and slowly, similar to how I am talking to you now. This is the first step of becoming a proficient AWACS. Another important thing to note, SRS is not what is called full duplex, but half duplex. What this means is that there can only be one person talking at a time. Otherwise, it will cause interference and the message will not get through, and it will sound like this. It is important that you are making sure that you are not stepping over anyone talking, as it is essentially jamming anyone else's communications for the duration both of you have your microphone keyed. Now what you should do is announce your presence to the server. In the AWACS panel, on the bottom right, there's a button that says Simul Transmission, or Simultaneous Transmission. Turning this on and pressing the ST button on your panel for up to 3 different frequencies makes it so when you begin transmitting on the radio, it will mirror that transmission on all of your selected frequencies. Normally, I will announce that I am Sunrise on 134, 253, 251, and 249.5. You do this by turning on ST for frequencies 253, 251, and 249, and then pressing your push to talk for radio 134. When doing this, you say something to the tune of, "All stations, GCI is Sunrise on frequency 134.0, call sign magic." After alerting the horde of players that a human controller is active when you announce you are Sunrise, you will get flooded with people checking in with you. Some of the most common check-ins can be boiled down into 6 parts: their call sign, how many of them, their airframe, their location, their mission type, their air-to-air loadout and fuel or their state, and finally their intent. Alternatively, some aircraft may ask you for an alpha check, which is a way of asking to confirm their location relative to the bullseye. In this case, it could be rearranged to their call sign, how many, their airframe, their location, their air-to-air loadout and fuel, their mission type, and request alpha check, which is their way of asking, what is my bullseye? An important thing to note in LotATC, an aircraft's call sign in-game is completely different from their chosen call sign in their username. So whenever you see call sign in LotATC, like what is shown in the objects tool, ignore it completely. By far the easiest way of locating where an aircraft is when they check in with their call sign is by going into said objects tool, on the sidebar turning on the human filter, scrolling down until you find their call sign and their username, or by searching for it in the search bar. Double-clicking anything inside the objects tool will automatically snap your view to them. When an aircraft checks in with you, most GCIs who control on Georgia at War will usually mark them as neutral, which will show them as green instead of blue on the map. This helps keep track of who is actually listening to you and is a hell of a lot better than trying to remember each person's call sign when you could be controlling up to 20 people or more at the same time in the same area. You do this by clicking on the aircraft applicable and pressing F5 by default. Alternatively, through the Selection Properties tool, click where it says Classification and select Neutral Air. I do not believe changing someone's classification has implications on other servers with more realistic settings, but on Georgia at War, it does not and is common practice. After finding the aircraft who checked in with you, respond to the check-in, which would begin with Viper 1-1, Magic, Radar Contact. If you were requested to give an alpha check, here you would tell them their bullseye. You would then add alpha check, bullseye 22378. For someone who's checked in for seed, you can give them a bra or bullseye call to wherever you are getting ground radar contacts, which are almost always going to be SAMs. After the initial response of Viper 1-1, Magic, Radar Contact, Alpha Check, Bullseye 22378, you would say SA8 and SA15 active, Bullseye 11052.
Galaxy F-16 Bambi 1-1 checking in full seed load, currently engaged.
Maybe 1-1 radar contact.
You've also got
Bullseye
Nova.
20721, Angels 24. Yeah, those are going to be two SA10 clusters, Bra 10328. Caution, you have two. An aircraft requesting tasking for CAP, or Combat Air Patrol. If an enemy is close enough, a simple bogey dope will suffice. A bogey dope is a brevity term that breaks down to a bra call to the closest group of enemies. For example, Dagger 1-1, Magic, Group Bra 093 23 25,000, Hot, Hostile, Flanker. For CAP aircraft checking in with you that may be late to the party, you could tell them to anchor at a position. Anchor is a brevity term that means fly over here and loiter. An example of telling someone to anchor looks like this. Dagger 1-1, magic, anchor, bullseye, 03560.
A lucky
Galaxy
helicopter
Gypsy
can make it.
31, checking in east of Roosevelt, 28 miles. Single ship Tomcat, cap.
Gypsy 3-1, Galaxy, radar contact, bullseye, 20288, Angels 28. Gypsy 3-1, flow east, 100 miles, anchor.
East 100 miles and then anchor, Gypsy 31.
For strike targets, things get tricky. Not as in difficult, but as in there is a limitation. At the moment, ground targets do not get shown, only radar returns from SAMs. If you get a check-in for strike and you are incapable of seeing ground targets, your response would go something along the lines of Hog 1-1, magic, unable.
Wave 1-1, checking in for strike.
Wave 1-1, Galaxy, radar contact, bullseye, 25344, Angels 19, proceed as fragged.
Wave 1-1.
Readbacks are an entirely optional thing that most aircraft talking to you will do. A readback is simply the aircraft reading your transmission to them back at you, often abbreviated to make sure that they understood everything that you said to them. In the seed tasking example, after responding to their check-in with Viper 1-1, magic, radar contact, SA-8 and SA-15 active, bullseye 11052, Viper 1-1 may give you a readback along the lines of magic, Viper 1-1, SA-8 and SA-15 active, bullseye 11052. If they read back correctly, acknowledge them with something simple such as Viper 1-1, magic, good readback. Other aircraft, when receiving their tasking, may respond with something telling you that they heard or understood you, such as simply responding with magic, Viper 1-1 copies. Now that you know how to respond to aircraft check-ins, you are going to be addressing the aircraft on your net consistently. Some requests you may end up hearing include bogey dopes, vectors to someone or somewhere, declaring a target, or requesting additional assistance. A bogey dope, as stated previously, is just a way of asking, give me a bra to the closest enemy. This can either be given on request or at your discretion. For example, if you see someone who is starting to get towards the fight, you could direct him to attack a target by saying, Viper 1-1, magic, group, bra, 17328, 35,000, flanking south, Foxhound. Wolf 1-1, Galaxy, threat, bra, 124, 16, 5,000. Target is faded. New threat. Bra 102, 25, 3000. Beam north. Flanker.
Love 1-1 committed.
If a friendly asks for a vector to another call sign or landmark, they're simply asking to be pointed in the direction of what they asked for. If you've been listening, this is likely going to include a bra of some type, or alternatively you could give a bullseye. If you are being told to vector to closest airfield, you would give them a bra to the closest friendly airfield. For example, Dagger 1-1, vector to nearest airfield, 32212, Novorossiysk. If you are being told to vector to home plate, you would give them a bra call to where they spawned, which if you are on GA is likely going to be a Napa, or if they're a Navy aircraft, the boat. If you're being told to vector to another call sign, you would give them the bearing, range, and altitude in angels, since it is the correct brevity term in this instance. For example, Dagger 1-1, vector to Viper 1-1, Bra 155, 32, angels 15. Lophone 3, Galaxy, radar contact. What did you like again?
Oh, you've labeled me as Loaf 1-3, that's cool. Can I get a vector to Loaf 1-1?
Loaf 1-3, Galaxy, vector to Loaf 1-1, Bra 2799, Angel 16, tracking west.
Loaf 1-3.
Declaring a target is often done frantically by our aircraft, and they may be in an engagement, and it's simply asking you, what is this? Where they may see something locking them up, but nothing on their radar or SA page, or they simply lost track of their target. In addition to a what is this request, they could also be asking, where is this? A what is this example could be as simple as magic, dagger 1-1, declare off my nose. Or you could see a transmission like magic, dagger 1-1, group bullseye 050 22 26,000, declare. The much better radio transmission out of the two is where the requesting aircraft provides a bullseye to the target they want identified. A reply to this would be Dagger 1-1, Magic, Group, Bullseye, 050 22 26,000, Track West, Hostile, Single Contact, Fulcrum. Take caution with ambiguous calls, such as my nose, as if there are a lot of aircraft around their area, you could end up calling a hostile out to them, but they mistake the target for a friendly. The best way to avoid any potential confusion or friendly fire is by exclusively using bullseye calls, as when they look to their radar page in most modern aircraft, it will give them a bullseye to whatever they may have their cursor over. A where is this example sounds like magic, Viper 1-1, declare, mainstay. Simply put, Viper 1-1 is asking, where is the mainstay? When you look on the map and you find the A50, which has the reporting name of mainstay as shown earlier, you would give the same call as mentioned previously to Viper 1-1, but towards the mainstay. Viper 1-1, magic, group, bullseye, 122, 87, 35,000, track east, hostile, single contact, mainstay.
Galaxy Nova 1-1. I have two radar contacts to my bra 005. One is Angel 10. The other one is Angel 5, I believe. Is the second one at Angel 5 enemy or friendly?
Nova 1-1, bullseye, 126, 54, 11,000, hostile fish bed.
Understood. 1 times Fox 3.
Merge is a brevity term announcing that friendlies have entered the visual arena, simply meaning that they're within visual range of each other. This also marks the point where any attempt to provide situational awareness is likely going to be completely incorrect, since both parties are changing direction, speed, and altitude so much that by the time the screen refreshes to update positions, it is already going to be severely off. The radar contacts may also become indistinguishable from each other. To demonstrate this, turn on the setting at the bottom right of LotATC called Show Primary Radar Spot. You may notice if you zoom in close enough that the icon of the aircraft and the position of the radar return can be offset. In close engagements where the two sides are moving and turning very fast, it can get disorienting. And if you make an attempt to call out anything, you will almost always be completely incorrect. Keep in mind that you are watching the battlefield in slow motion. You have a roughly 3 to 5 second refresh rate on where everything is positioned, and in terms of being in a fight, 3 seconds might as well be 3 years. Within roughly 3 to 5 miles, you would tell the aircraft that they've merged. For example, Viper 1-1 merged. After the merge call, all you can do is watch and hope that your side comes out on top. This would also be a good time to get another aircraft to assist if possible. If you're being asked for help, or you see someone who's bitten off more than they can chew, or simply they're about to get steel clubbed, for instance, a flanker hot on an A-10, acknowledge the aircraft requesting additional assistance if applicable, and start looking for another aircraft in that area on frequency that could be available to help. Take this example. A friendly reached out to you for help. It's a 1v3, they're low on fuel and ammo. Tell them to scram. The term scram is used when a friendly asset is in immediate danger. Scram is given with a cardinal direction towards the direction of survival, typically towards friendly airspace. Dagger 1-1, Magic. Recommend scram northwest. Chuck 1-1 Galaxy, scram northwest. You're gotten a little bit too close to the enemy carrier group. Another example where it's not as drastic of a situation, you could tell them to bug out. The term bug out tells the aircraft to separate from an engagement without the intent to return, and follows the same rules as scram, where you would give a cardinal direction towards friendly airspace. Viper 1-1, Magic. Recommend bug out east.
Check 1-1, defensive SA-10.
Chuckle 1 Galaxy, bug out west. After giving out the scram or bug out order, find a friendly aircraft in the area like I told you to that could be able to assist. If someone is close but doing something else, too bad, there's a life in danger, unless they just don't want to. Refer to the golden rule of being a GCI, you are a suggestion. More often than not, however, people will be gladly able to assist. To emphasize that this is an urgent situation, when giving out a brawl call to an enemy attacking Dagger 1-1 in this example, you could use some different language, such as Viper 1-1, Magic, Threat to Dagger 1-1, Buster, Bra, 115, 20, 25,000, 3-ship flanker. This first new word, Threat to Dagger 1-1, is optional, but it conveys the idea that they are engaging a friendly call sign. This new word, Buster, tells the aircraft receiving this transmission to move as fast as possible. I would like to stress this again. If you are uncomfortable using all of this brevity, go back to the basics. Feel free to use common English. Remember, it's better to be sloppy than wrong. We all have to start somewhere. I did. Wrapping up the different brevity terms and ways that you may be called upon, the final term that you may sometimes use is handing out cautions. While not actually an official term, it can be helpful navigating your aircraft around dangers such as SAM sites. If you catch an aircraft drifting too close to a threat such as a SAM cluster, you could warn them that they are doing so. There's two terms that you can use, trespass or active. The term trespass is used in addressing aircraft that are entering the threat zone of an enemy SAM. You could tell someone, Viper 1-1, Magic, Trespass, SA-10, Bullseye, 02354. Calling active tells the aircraft that there is an emitter radiating in an area. So basically, there's a surface-to-air radar here. You would use the same transmission as previous, but you would switch the order of the type of contact around. For example, Viper 1-1, Magic, SA-3 active, Bullseye 17447. If you are ever in a situation where you told someone something incorrect, don't panic. Simply tell them to either disregard your transmission if there's something that you've told them that could just be forgotten about. For example, Viper 1-1, Magic, disregard my last transmission. If you gave someone incorrect information, don't leave them to find out the hard way. Correct yourself by saying, Viper 1-1, Magic, correction, and then read back the correct information. I mentioned picture calls a while back. I didn't want to get into them simply because they're complicated, this is a beginner's guide, and I'm still learning them myself. Maybe one day I'll make a separate guide doing picture calls, but today is not that day. Don't think that picture calls are useless, however. They're one of the most helpful things that you can give and can streamline giving callouts to your aircraft. For example, instead of telling someone a bra and that's a 3-ship, in a picture call or something similar, you could tell them their spacing, different altitudes, their formation, where they're all heading, etc. I would highly recommend, after you become comfortable doing AWACS work, to begin learning picture calls at your own pace. It can be an incredibly useful skill if you want to keep doing this regularly. I will leave some resources for picture calls below. When you wish to call it quits for the time being, you go midnight. All you have to do is mimic what you did going sunrise, but instead call that you have gone midnight. All you have to say to wrap things up is, all stations, magic is midnight. After that, enter the Hoggit Discord and type in the following command, !GCI midnight, and you will be signed out. Remember to disconnect from LotATC and SRS. Just like that, your first session as the AWACS is complete. Holy shit, you stuck it out till the end on the all-in-one version. I want to say thank you for sticking it out to the end. This is looking like it's going to be the 50-minute mark. I don't make any videos. This is going to be the first time I've ever made an actual video intended to be published for other people. I hope that this helped you begin learning how to do AWACS or ATC or just GCI work in general. I'll throw Damsel's GCI Academy's Discord link below. Has all sorts of very nice people and very useful resources, as well as events to help people learn, be it through Brevity or just going through our sessions together. And now, since I'm at a loss for what else to say, have a good one.